Hello. VOD review for week 4. As always, I'll do a quick team breakdown and then go straight into the matches. We did skip a week, so this is technically week 5, but we're on the 4th session, but it doesn't really matter. I'll just get right into it. This week, I brought a version of a team that I saw that got second place in the Victory Road Winter Challenge. I mean, it's the same exact 6 Pokemon, but the reason I brought this is because I was actually team building something that ended up looking very similar to this. But I wanted to try the Arcanine Hisui over the other two I was considering were Entei and Chiyu for the fire type slot, but I decided to try Arcanine this round. But everything else here I thought was very me, I guess. Obviously I've been using Tornadus Urshifu a lot, and the single strike Urshifu has been very good so far. It provides a lot of the same muscle as the rapid strike one, particularly in setting up situations where protect is just not really an option, and that's very helpful, especially for hyper offensive teams like this. The single strike version picking up a lot of steam, and in my playtesting I really liked it, honestly. Urshifu Rapid Strike is still really good, but I find that it's a lot harder to position nowadays, considering how popular Ogerpon Wellspring is. You've got stuff like Amoonguss and Raging Bolt, Rillaboom even as pretty big counters to it. So having that Wicked Blow is just a lot nicer of a neutral hitting nuke, basically. Now, what it is affecting the meta in a way that a lot of random Pokemon are starting to opt for Fairy Terra as their defensive Terra, just because Fairy has a nice neutral defensive typing against stuff like Fire, Water, Grass, other Fairy types. So it's pretty good at just neutralizing your weaknesses and also having resistance to all of Urshifu single strike stuff. So that's kind of why you're seeing a lot of Fairy Terra pick up right now, and why I think Fluttermane is still really, really popular right now. You might think people might be picking up counters to Urshifu single strike, but Fluttermane's right there still. So not saying that it's a hard counter, but it definitely is able to hit it really hard. Honestly, this team is not too dissimilar to my week 1 team, which was the Rain team that I brought. This also has Rain Dance on it, but I essentially swapped Urshifu Rapid Strike for Ogerpon Wellspring, since Wellspring was it can still hit really hard with the Terra Water Ivy Cudgel in the rain, but it also provides me a nice utility with the Follow Me to protect my other offensive mons, and also kind of really helps my Urshifu Rapid Strike matchup. So with that water slot gone, I was able to slot in Urshifu single strike as well, which I just explained has been very nice having around. The Focus Sash on it is really awesome, honestly. I think that item is so good on this Pokemon, so definitely feels very strong right now. Glimmora is pretty standard. I ended up running Earth Power over Energy Ball this time around. I think Earth Power has been more popular, but I haven't really gotten a chance to click either of those two. It's mainly just been Meteor Beams and Sludge Bombs coming out of my Glimmora, so unfortunately Glimmora did not get too much screen time this time around, but I'll explain why later when we get to team previews. Flutter main, of course, is very standard choice specs. If you'll notice, all of my EV spreads minus Urshifu are very wacky, honestly, or not super standard. So I do have some reasoning for them, but yeah, I'm not super. You know what? This is actually wrong. This is adamant. Sorry. But yeah, the spreads are a little bit weird, but I do have my reasoning for that, and I can explain if anyone wants to know why. It's mostly just me trying to come up with my own stuff, and that way I can actually explain it rather than taking EV spreads from online and not being able to explain it very well because I don't know what the numbers are for. So yeah. I am running modest, not that much speed investment Flutter main, which actually comes up a couple times, or not a couple times, but again, I'll explain when it gets to team preview. Very standard Tornadus set. This is wrong as well. This is actually taunt. I was experimenting with Protect Tornadus, and it feels pretty good, honestly. I just... taunt right now is, especially on Tornadus, is having some trouble thanks to the prevalence of Farigiraf and Psychic Terrain. But it's still just so valuable to be able to taunt a Moongus, and especially taunt, I don't want to call them gimmick Pokemon, but anything that isn't running some sort of priority block or like Terra Dark or something. These like lesser used support Pokemon that might surprise you with stuff, being able to taunt them is really nice and just shut that down. And then the Arcanine, I think Arcanine Hisui is actually still quite good. I think a lot of people are sleeping on it, and I still feel like it has a lot of power in the meta. It is like heavily contested with Incineroar for your fire Intimidate, but I think the offensive power it brings is like really, really high. Like if you need the utility, then Incineroar is definitely the way to go, but I don't think people should overlook this Pokemon. I think it's still really good, and in testing it definitely pulled its weight through. So but yeah, the team is pretty simple. Like I set up my Tailwind if I'm against other Tailwinds usually, or if I don't feel like I need Tailwind. Like a lot of my team is pretty naturally fast, minus Gomara kind of. Like if I'm against a Trick Room team, I'm just gonna bring 4 like pretty hard hitters and just click moves until they go down pretty much. Like there's nothing really tricky about the team. And there's honestly not that much utility on it, but I can kind of just brute force my way through a lot of situations. So it's very much a me team in the way that I play. So with that, it's a little different. I don't have the VOD. Excuse me. I don't have the VOD on YouTube because it's still uploading right now. My internet has been kind of slow, so I just have a raw video file. So yeah, we're gonna go in through here. So my round 1 is against Anthony. This is the first tournament or first week, I should say, where I actually spent some time prepping against specifically Ben and Anthony's team because I didn't have Aster's team sheet until like an hour before the tournament or something like that. But I did realize after last week that the Chi-Yu Regidraco absolutely like just does so much damage that I need to be ready for it basically, or else it will just run me over. And the Sinistra, I actually thought it had Trick Room up until like an hour before the event or whenever Anthony told me that he was updating the team sheet, but does not have Trick Room. It's actually Whimsicott with the Trick Room, which might have changed my prep a little bit, but regardless, I basically was trying to figure out a way to cover for Reggie Draco Chi leads and also still be able to combat the Whimsicott / Trick Room mode for speed control. So I think you'll see me lock pretty much the same 4 Pokemon for this set because I felt like if I didn't have the correct answers, I would just explode. So, it's a little boring, but I felt like I had to lead this basically. So, the idea here is that against Chiyu Draco, I could do Bleak Wind plus Close Combat, Close Combat into the Reggie Draco. So, what that does is it covers for Terra and Reggie Draco. I believe in my calcs probably takes about 70 to 80% from Close Combat. And then if Chiyu gets off a hit, I'm not really concerned about that. So even if both of our Mons go down there, I felt pretty confident in, as long as I get the chip in, Flutter can just pick up the KO in the back. So as long as I did enough damage to the Reggie Draco, I felt pretty confident. But he did lead Iron Boulder Whimsicott, which, it's a different situation, but I had a similar idea. Whimsicott is kind of annoying for my team because if you saw the team breakdown that I have, I am running Timid Max Speed Tornadus, and the reason I have that is specifically so that I can outrun other Tornadus guarantee for the most part, since a lot of them are not running max speed. The only problem is even max speed Tornadus is not going to be able to outspeed max speed Whimsicott no matter what. So in the mirror, it's pretty annoying because in this specific scenario, I think I still clicked Tailwind because the one danger of this scenario, if I don't click Tailwind, is if he goes for Whimsicott Moonblast plus Iron Boulder attack into Urshifu Single Strike. That would completely KO it without me even getting anything off. So I felt like I had to click Tailwind here to cover for that. Even if I get taunted, it means that I just get brought down to Focus Sash, and that's fine. And I believe I ran some calcs in that Terra Dark Wicked Blow will KO Iron Boulder no matter what. Like, even if it Terra Flyings, it will still get knocked out unless it's running a ton of physical bulk, which I was pretty confident that I wasn't because it's attack booster and it also is faster than a lot of my mods, I think. So I think I did some, like I said, I actually prepped this time, so I knew for a fact that if he's running Adamant Iron Boulder, then he still actually outspeeds my Flutter Mane because my Flutter Mane is modest with only 124 speed. So I knew that it's actually kind of a big threat, honestly, to get rid of this thing. So I'm pretty much fine trading my Terra, or not trading my Terra, but like burning it here just to guarantee the KO because it actually is quite a big threat for my team. So once that goes down, I don't expect him to set Trick Room here, so I think the rest of my team feels pretty fine running under Tailwind. It does get a little bit dicey in a second, which you'll see, but this felt like a pretty safe move I had right here, which was he's running Covert Cloak Whimsicott, I think. Or no, Mental Herb. So I felt pretty safe going for Bleak Wind here. A lot of my matches did actually could have swung if I was missing Bleak Winds, but thankfully I was connecting a lot of the key ones I needed to. Um, but yeah, it's a pretty simple protect here because I can cover, or not cover, I can scout for a Terra here, which it does end up happening. And then Bleak Wind picks up a KO and gets some chip into Regidraco, so. There is a situation later on that would have really mattered, that I'll point out, but good Moonblast here, honestly, predicting the detect here, getting some chip into the Tornadus. I imagine the Dragon Energy might still KO me from here, but hard to say. Okay. I can't fast forward as usual on this, I think. Yeah. Okay. So Fluttermane comes in, and I am faster here for sure. So in this scenario, it gets a little tricky here because Urshifu is slower than the Chi-Yu. So Fluttermane is the fastest thing on the screen right now, so I'm always clicking Dazzling Gleam here. I don't think there's any reason to do anything else. The next thing is, because Urshifu is slower than Chi-Yu, I'm pretty much forced to click Sucker Punch, so it's basically coin flipping at this point on which one I want to target down. And I believe I choose wrong here. Let's see. I think he goes for a protect on Drago. Yeah. So, in hindsight, I really should have targeted the Chi-Yu down because the Chi-Yu has Focus Sash, so being able to Sucker Punch plus Gleam would just knock it out. But again, it is a coin flip here, like which one's going to protect since they both have it. And he chose right, so. So yeah, Heatwave picks up a KO. And then my last one is Arcanine. So the Dazzling Gleam doing half to Chi-Yu there, I don't know if it was a high roll or not. I probably should calculate that later, but I feel pretty comfortable clicking Dazzling Gleam again to KO it. And in hindsight, what I really should have done here was go for Extreme Speed into the Regidraco, because I'm pretty sure my Arcanine max speed, or not max speed, my Arcanine is 140 speed, so I think if he's running Timid max speed Draco, which I believe he is, it's faster than my Arcanine. But yeah, getting the damage down here with the critical hit actually basically lucks me the game. Because I think the reason I said extreme speed is I'm pretty sure if I just chipped the Regidraco with the extreme speed there, it still might be fine. But that critical hit actually mattered a lot, because I don't know if Earth Power KOs Flutter from there. That's actually a good thing to look at. I think his Draco doesn't have Terra Blast. Yeah, so it has Dragon Energy, Draco Meteor, Protect, Earth Power. I don't think Earth Power KOs my Flutter at 62 HP, which I think I had. Yeah, I don't think it does. Like, even with Beads of Ruin, Flutter has 135 base special defense plus my HP investment. I'm pretty sure it doesn't. But regardless, it could crit, so like it really, that game got a lot closer than it might have seemed. Yeah, I'll have to run the calculator, but definitely got pretty dicey there in the end game. And then the next game, I think again I brought the same thing. Yeah, so like I said, I had to avoid a lose situation here. So the thing with this lead is that so his Urshifu Rapid Strike is not threatening any KOs into me, I'm pretty sure. Maybe Terror Water Surging Strike might KO my Tornadus because I'm not running that much defense, but I felt pretty confident that even if he gets Tailwind up, I wasn't going down to anything. So this is why I end up clicking Bleak Wind here, is because I needed to cover for the Trick Room. And this is again where I'm really banking on my Bleak Winds hitting, which shouldn't really be, like, I'm hoping I'm never put in a position where I need to hit Bleak Wind, but in this situation it just felt like the best option. Because I think if you think about my back two Pokemon, well, last round I brought Fluttermane, Ogerpon, Wellspring. I can't remember if Arcanine. I can't remember if I brought the same two or if I swapped Arcanine for Ogerpon. But if it is Fluttermane, Arcanine, I don't have any Protect. So if the speed control is not in my favor, it's actually really bad for me. So this right here, I was trying to cover for... well, not cover for the Terra Water, but I wanted to get some damage off. And Sucker Punch... Well, actually, why did I go for Sucker Punch there? Because... Well, I guess my thinking was that if he does Terra, I get some... yeah, there's really no reason for me. I think I always click Close Combat there. I don't know why I did that. Because if he does Terra, then Bleak Wind's not going to knock it out. So Close Combat would have done enough chip there to KO the Rapid Strike. So I don't know why I did that. But Bleak Wind picking up the knockout there is pretty big. Was it going for Trick Room? I didn't actually notice. So Sucker Punch goes first. Yeah, so he was going for Trick Room there. So that actually would have been really, really bad for me if the Trick Room came up. So the Bleak Wind hitting there was really crucial. But now I usually feel pretty confident that well, I felt like the Sinistcha was probably going to survive a Bleak Wind. In fact, it definitely is if I hit Bleak Wind, so getting chipped there wasn't really worth it. I'd rather just taunt it to remove the annoyance of it using Rage Powder and Strength Sap later. So that's why I went for taunt there. And this right here is a little bit interesting. I didn't think he was going to target down my Urshifu, which is why I thought he was going to use his Rapid Strike Urshifu to hit my Tornadus. And then the Sinistcha either gets taunted or it will try to go for Machagacha to pick up the KO onto my Urshifu, which is why I end up using Detect in front of his Urshifu. The turn could have gone wrong, but like or I think Urshifu has already done its job. So, yeah, I did bring Fluttermane Arcanine in the back. So, no Protect on either of those means that if the speed control's not in my favor, it's really going to go badly. So, yeah. Taunt there. And then the Machigacha isn't going to do anything. The Surging Strikes does end up KOing my Tornadus here, but I know for a fact my Fluttermane outruns everything that he has in the back outside of Iron Boulder. And we still have Urshifu on the field to deal with Iron Boulder, or at least lock it down with Sucker Punch. So yeah, Fluttermane comes in here, and the speed control is like completely in my favor at this point. Well, it's not even speed control; it's just natural speed. So because he doesn't have Aqua Jet, my Urshifu will actually get another move off, and I don't think this is kind of the benefit of running my Gorilla team is that Urshifu, Fluttermane both hit so hard that like. Realistically, what are you going to switch in here? Like, what wants to take a Choice Specs, Dazzling Gleam, and a Wicked Blow? Like, not many Pokemon in the meadow really want to take that, so. Yeah, it should be Wicked Blow into the Sinistcha here, yeah. So, I believe this ends up being a double knockout, and then whatever's in the back can't 1v3. So he ends up getting a Detect off. That's so much damage, honestly. The almost KOing a Sinistcha from there is crazy. The Rocket Helmet does KO me, but like I said, without Aqua Jet, this Urshifu can't really threaten me. And then I don't remember what his back is, but I don't think it matters. And, you know, in hindsight, I guess even with Aqua Jet, it wouldn't matter at this situation because the -1 goes into it. So, I still think Aqua Jet is really good on it, obviously, but the taunt on it kind of makes sense. Like, having a non-prankster taunt user is actually really nice to have into stuff like Farigiraf and Indeedee. So, right here, just getting chipped down with extreme speed to make sure this KOs. I think it KOs regardless, but yeah. The game one was actually really. I think that it was a lot closer than it actually seemed, but yeah, once the speed control is no longer. If there's no speed control, then Fluttermane outpaces everything, and it usually just one-shots most, or at least does heavy damage. So that was basically it for that set. Honestly, like, hitting as many Bleakwinds as I did definitely seemed like some luck, because a lot of those situations probably could have gone pretty wrong without hitting Bleakwind. But regardless, we'll go ahead and skip ahead. So I think Aster requested me to look at some of their games that we ended up catching. So I usually don't like reviewing games in the middle of it like this, because I have no idea what the heck's going on here. I don't know what the field situation is or what's in the back or anything, but we did catch part of this game and then also game 3, so because she specifically requested it, I will review those as well. So so yeah, this is the Terror Water Sylveon that has been doing quite well. Yeah, see, I don't know what to say about this because I guess I can now assume that Trick Room is not up because Iron Crown is moving first here, but this is Speed Booster Iron Crown, so that not KOing Incineroar actually makes a lot of sense. But it is really crazy to think that a Terra Water Terra Blast from Iron Crown is a 3-hit KO on Incineroar because of the Citrus Berry. So here, I guess I can see why they went for the Terra Blast. Because Hyper Voice would have done less damage if they didn't Terra, so the Terra Blast makes sense there. In general, the Hyper Voice is usually going to do more damage than the Terra Blast, but in that specific scenario, it makes sense to go for there. And then the knockoff is I'm assuming, well, even if it did switch in that turn, it wouldn't have mattered. I probably would have liked to see a parting shot over the oh my god, this is okay, first of all, I probably would have liked to see parting shot over the knockoff because the speed booster being used for Iron Crown means that knockoff's power goes down by quite a lot. So unless you're really desperate to get the chip damage in, which I guess maybe makes sense in this specific scenario, but in general, I probably would have either pivoted or tried to you know what, I'm just going to disregard that because what ends up happening here is actually super clutch. So this turn right here with Incineroar surviving that, I think realistically there isn't really a way for Aster to stop Hatterene from using Trick Room. Like maybe a Flare Blitz plus Hyper Voice might knock it out. I don't think so, honestly, because Hatterene actually has quite a lot of natural bulk outside of HP. And I'm going to assume Ben is running a pretty standard set with max HP, max special attack. So there isn't really a way to stop Hatterene from clicking Trick Room here, except this one specific scenario, which is that you can parting shot into the Hatterene. And I believe Aster said this is an accident. And, like, I don't expect them to know this interaction because even I was like, oh, yeah, that's a thing. If you click Parting Shot into Hatterene, its ability will bounce Parting Shot because it's a status move. And what happens is it actually reflects the effect back into the Incineroar and forces the Hatterene to switch out. So this is actually such an insane thing. Like, she did say it was an accident, but I think there are scenarios where more experienced players would actually end up using that as a way to get it off the field. So that's really crazy. So suddenly this is looking a lot like it's looking super clean now because the speed control is no longer, it was about to be in Ben's favor, but he doesn't really, like, he can get Trick Room up here with Wide Guard plus Trick Room, I think, is probably the way, but, well, even then it's not guaranteed because I think Flare Blitz actually KOs DD from this range. I actually don't know, like, I know that Sylveon has 0 speed investment and Incineroar has very low speed investment, probably like 4 EVs, and I believe they're both base 60. I don't actually know if Gallade is underspeeding those. I think it is if it is like Brave nature, like minus speed nature and 0 IVs, but I don't know that for sure, so he ends up going for Follow Me plus Trick Room here. Knockoff kills the NDD, okay. And then Hyper Voice. Terra Blast. So this should definitely be hyper voice. Well, let me think about this. If Gallade wide guards, no, this is definitely should always be hyper voice. Against Gallade and DD, the game is always if it's gonna wide guard and then DD trick rooms, or if DD follow me's and then Gallade presses trick room. And he ends up going for follow me trick room, but because DD is so low, and Incineroar is actually faster than Sylveon because of those 4 speed EVs I said, you pretty much have a guarantee here of the knockoff into DD, and then the Hyper Voice does more damage than Terra Blast because Fairy is super effective against fighting. It wouldn't have KO'd the Gallade here because, well, I'm pretty sure it wouldn't have because Gallade has pretty high natural special defense plus the Psychic Seed boost, but it would have done more damage there for sure. So there's something to keep in mind that your Hyper Voice is usually going to be doing more damage than your Terra Blast. But Ben finally does get Trick Room up here, but it's kind of an uphill battle here because you can get your Expanding Force off, but you need to also get rid of the Incineroar, so you're pretty much forced to click Dazzling Gleam here, I think. Well, yeah, you know what? I think this makes more sense because I think you're still not sure if Gallade underspeeds Sylveon. And Expanding Force here, I think at least you give yourself a chance with a crit. Like, if Expanding Force hits the Sylveon with a crit and immediately KOs it, then the game is over. So I think giving yourself that chance is still the right idea. But yeah, Hyper Voice. Sylveon does underspeed Gallade, so that is actually something to know. I don't know if Ben's is minus speed nature, 0 speed IVs, but yeah, that is something to know. And at this point, you're pretty much pinned here. You're going for another crit, basically. Like, you can't Expanding Force because Incineroar is immune to it, so you have to click Dazzling Gleam, and Dazzling Gleam is not going to KO Sylveon at this range, so I think Ben clicked all the right moves considering the situation he was put into. Like, giving yourself at least a chance for crits to happen and winning through that is kind of what you need to recognize sometimes when you're in a really bad spot, so I mean, there's not really much to say about, like, the parting shot actually did turn everything into Aster's favor, so I guess in the future, like, that is a scenario that you can start thinking about, so yeah, good to know. So this is game 3. I do kind of want to ask Ben about the Gyarados slot because it does look specifically like a pick that he used to counter something specifically. I don't know exactly what it was for because it's running Waterfall, Temper Flare, Protect, and No, wait, was it Terra Blast? Yeah, it is Terra Blast, a flying Terra Blast. And it's holding Covert Cloaks, so I think this is very obviously a more offensive Gyarados, so I do want to pick his brains about that one and see what it was trying to counter. Because normally, I think with size spam teams, like, you're really fighting for slots in the team because especially if you're running not a hard Trick Room team, then if you're running like half Trick Room, half Sun, or half Trick Room, half Indeedee Iron Crown, which is what he's doing, you have so many slots that are already taken up because you have Indeedee, Iron Crown, Hatterene alone, and then Gallade is really helpful as your wide guard Trick Room setter so that you can use Indeedee and Glade and get it up. So you really only have you have 4 slots taken up there, and you have 2 slots left. So Ursaluna makes a lot of sense to me, having a physical attacker that's also not psychic, because you have 4 psychic types. And then Gyarados in the last slot is the one that I'm curious about. So yeah, I am all tabbed here because I'm trying to fix things on my stream, so I didn't really get to see. It looks like a Snarl comes off of this Zorua that's in the Sylveon slot, and then a parting shot. So so it looks like he does go for a Terra Water to get rid of the Flare Blitz, but instead it's a parting shot. So I believe his Iron Crown is at -2 at this point. I'm trying to think about this, because if it is Sylveon plus, honestly, I'm not really sure. Well, I know what he has in the back, but I kind of feel like setting Trick Room here is totally fine. Like, and then the double Sylveon. Yeah, like, I don't feel that bad about going for Trick Room and then either protecting or like switching in something. The reason I say that is because I really don't want to burn my Iron Crown Terra or even my Terra this early against and Incineroar. That's not that threatening, I don't think. And the Sylveon, which you don't know if it's Sylveon or Zoro yet, but Protect kind of defends against the Flare Blitz and the Snarl play, and then you get Trick Room up. So even if your Iron Crown goes down here, I think you kind of just sack it and let your Hatterene come in at full health, or your Ursaluna come in at full health or something. I also do think you should try, I think Aster made the right play going for Parting Shot to cover for the Terra. Protect would have denied the pivot there, and then Trick Room coming up. And this next turn, you definitely know if it's Sylveon or Zora, and once you see the Snarl, you of course know it's Zora. So, yeah, it's hard to say. I think honestly, Side Spam is a lot more skill intensive than a lot of people think, because there's obviously teams where you literally just run the game plan and run the opponent over, but I think oftentimes you really have to be creative with how you beat your counters, because the team is very rigid. So if you don't have the right Pokemon on your team to deal with situations, and you're not using them creatively, then you can kind of just really fall apart really fast. So the Terra Water here, I don't yeah, well, it's not that bad, because I think, yeah, you're basically you know what, the Terra Water was pretty good here, because the danger here is if Sylveon gets hit by, well, you know what? I don't even think it KOs. Helping Hand Tachyon Cutter into Sylveon at -1. I don't think it KOs. But even if you were sure that it doesn't KO, I kind of like the Terra Water here just to avoid the damage. Because you're essentially doing some magical hat shit here, where you're guessing which Sylveon. Actually, no, wait. There is no guessing game, because he already saw the Snarl here. So the Terra Water just completely mitigates the Tachyon Cutter damage. So I think that's quite good. You also could have done Protect plus Snarl if you wanted to conserve your Terra. But this turn completely goes into Aster's favor. And I think it really shows, like, if you're looking for counters to side spam teams, Snarl users are really, really annoying for side spam, I find. Of course, there are ways to mitigate it, like wide guard on Gallade or something like that, but stuff like Assault Vest Entei with Snarl, Assault Vest Raging Bolt, which we've seen pop up a little bit more with Snarl, it's really annoying to deal with for side spam teams. And it's part of the reason, like, I do think I want to see Ben use their Saluna a little bit more, because I think he leans very heavily into the side spam part of the team, which I think is very fair because the damage it outputs is absolutely insane. But part of the great part about running side spam is that you have this tool that's so strong with expanding force that you literally like alter what your opponent is doing. So like, if you can take advantage of that, it's really nice. But yeah, we're in like a really, really bad situation now. And this is the thing that I found with side spam, which is that you kind of have to like run really hard trick room mode, I think. And well, okay, maybe not. If you're gonna run hard trick room, you need tools to cover everything. Like, I think wide guard is a really important tool to have if you're running this hard of a trick room team. But if you're going for what we see some players do with like a Farigiraf plus Ursaluna Blood Moon into a normal team as like a trick room mode, you kind of don't need that as much. But yeah, so trick room does come up here, but I'm not really sure. You know what? It still might. It's hard to say because Sylveon is going to tank an expanding force here. And I actually wasn't paying attention to see if a Snarl came down last turn, but yeah, I do think Aster's getting a lot better at using the Zoroa. And it actually is like, I'm not going to say it's like the best Pokemon on our team because I don't think it is, but it is something you really have to think about when it comes to covering for if a Pokemon is Zoro or not. Because eating she doesn't have Will-O-Wisp on it anymore, but eating a Snarl in particular for a lot of teams is really annoying. Will-O-Wisp too, but both of those moves are just like absolutely game changing. So I'll talk a little bit more about Zoro when the VOD comes up against Asters. So yeah, I mean at this point it's pretty much over. Gyarados can't win against both these. So yeah, well played. I think the game one was, that's obviously luck there because she didn't quite know about the Magic Bounce interaction, but now you know, so now you can take advantage of that. And game two was just really solidly played with the Snarls and the defensive Terra, so well played. And like I said, on Ben's side in game one, I honestly wouldn't have done that much different, so I can't really I don't have much to say on that. I do think I was going to say maybe Ben needs to start running some more stuff to deal with dark types, because obviously those are a big problem for 4 psychic types. But he does actually have Gallade. He does actually have 2 Dazzling Gleams, so it's not quite the case. Okay, so next one is me versus Ben. So this actually, I believe, was the harder matchup for me, and you'll see why in game two. Game one, game one, I don't even know if I want to go over that heavily in depth because I think he makes a big error that he realized later, which is that he could have just wide guarded. But basically, my thought process is that we can use Fluttermane or Shfu to cover for Iron Crown and DD leads, and it does well enough into DD Gallade, except for one specific scenario, which he identifies in game two, which is a really nice adaptation. But I don't think the Ndidi Iron Crown situation ever comes up, so I'll just explain it really quick, which is that because Fluttermane is actually, you know what? It's not faster because of Speed Booster. Well, now I'm not sure. I was gonna say my plan was that I would use Icy Wind plus Wicked Blow into Ndidi. So what that guarantees is that with the Icy Wind speed drop, most of my team would outspeed Iron Crown next turn. But actually, with its speed booster, I don't actually think that's true. So maybe I was wrong. I mean, regardless, if I did see Speed Booster, I could do something else that isn't Icy Wind plus Wicked Blow into Ndidi. Like, I'd probably have to Wicked Blow into the Iron Crown. And then, well, even that's not great. So maybe that is an angle you can start thinking of. I don't actually know if Expanding Force KOs Fluttermane outright without maybe a helping hand. Because if you're Speed Booster, Expanding Force, Helping Hand, that's probably close to killing. Or maybe does kill. But hard to say. But yeah, he does end up leading Gallade Gyarados, which I'm really not sure about. I wasn't sure what the Gyarados was doing here, so I felt pretty confident in doing the Terra Fairy Gleam plus Wicked Blow. And what that does is it covers for Wide Guard. And if he doesn't Wide Guard, then this Gleam KOs the Gallade. Unless he swapped in the Ndidi, but then the Wicked Blow would KO it. So you'll see what happens next game when Ndidi plus Gallade comes up as the lead situation. But because it's Gyarados in this situation, I really don't mind just running this instead. So because I believe from the calcs I ran, I actually do need a Terra Fairy to pick up a KO onto Gallade with Dazzling Gleam because of its HP investment and natural special defense. But yeah, Psychic Seed kind of ruined my day on that. So he does go for Terra Flying here. I can't remember if he just goes for Terra Blast here or not. So let's see here. Oh, it doesn't get to move, that's right, because this KO's Valiant and then I Wicked Blow into the Gyarados. That's unfortunate. So yeah, this is why I said I don't even know if I want to review the game one, because he forgot about Wide Guard and then he forgot he doesn't have the Psychic Seed boost, so it was just a really unfortunate game one. And, you know, sometimes that happens, so it definitely happened to me against Anthony where he just, last week, where he just rolled me with the Chi Reggie Draco. And, you know, at this point, without Trick Room up, there's no possible way for Hatterene to live in this situation. As long as my targeting is right, which it's not. So, great job, me, but... and the reason I say that is, like, I'm pretty sure I should always do Wicked Blow into Ndidi plus Gleam. But, you know, it shouldn't matter at the end of the day. Because my point is here is I need to get a knockout on one of them. Because if I get a knockout on one of them before they move, that means that Urshifu Focus Sash always beats whatever's on the other side of the field one-on-one. Even if they're in Trick Room, it doesn't matter. So it ends up working out, but yeah. Funnily enough, the play he made actually would have beat me targeting the DD, so... Or not really, because then the speed is still in my favor later on, So I do the same lead and the same brings here, and you'll see the one situation that I was afraid of, which is that he leads Gallade in DD, and he tears the Gallade. So what this does is it beats my Terra Fairy Gleam plus Wicked Blow, because normally if he doesn't Terra, then the well, you know what? He does have Psychic Seed, so I guess he could have just tanked the Gleam here, I think. But, I mean, regardless, I think this lead ensures his best chance of getting Trick Room up. And the reason I target down the Indeedee here is it's just a free knockout onto a Pokemon that is actually really annoying to play against, especially on Psy Spam teams. Like, Helping Hand and Follow Me are just so strong, like such strong tools that will just swing the game really hard. So getting this off the field is totally fine with me. Yeah, I mean, I guess looking back on these games, like, it looks like I just crushed through the round robin 3-0 without dropping a game, but there were definitely a lot of games that I was really close to losing. Like, the game 1 against Anthony, the crit mattered, possibly, or at least it was very close. And then this one, I think, if played correctly, definitely goes to Ben here, so... So this is the part I was unsure about, which is I'm not sure why the Gyarados is coming out under Trick Room over the Hatterene. And then, like, I know Expanding Force is not going to hit the Urshifu, but you do have Gallade for that, so... My thought process in my prep was that I saw this scenario coming where he gets the Trick Room up and he tears the Gallade. And I thought Hatterene would come in, so my plan was to do Detect on Urshifu and just sack my Flutter Mane. And what that does is it lets a full HP Urshifu come up next to a partner, so that Hatterene has to do either Dazzling Gleam or Expanding Force. And that usually means that one of my Pokemon is going to get a move off. And hopefully it's a move that's strong enough here. So normally I wouldn't consider switching out, but I did see that he's going for Waterfall into my Flutter Mane, so I feel pretty confident about bringing Ogerpon in here, especially since Ogerpon has Spiky Shield, which will be nice to stall the Terror out here, or the Trick Room, sorry. Yeah, he does get a nice chip and Urshifu here. And he actually does read the switch, so pretty nice by him. But I believe at this point there are only 2 turns of Trick Room left. So I can kind of just bring my Arcanine out. It gets a nice attack drop, which mitigates both of these Pokemon's damage, and then I can just go for a Rock Slide and Follow Me here. Normally the Waterfall would be a big issue, or the Sacred Sword, but being able to redirect either of those really helps. And then I believe I've stalled it to the point where Trick Room will run out, and then Flutter Mane should be able to pick up all the KOs in the end game that it needs to. And that is kind of like a general trick room strategy. Like, if you can't stop the trick room from going up, you usually want to take as many KOs as you can while positioning yourself into a spot where you can safely stall things. Like, it's kind of tough against Expanding Force because this Expanding Force is so strong, but usually stuff like Ogre Prawn Wellspring Terra for the special defense boost or Snarl is enough to mitigate that like overwhelmingly power that most Trick Room teams usually have with Expanding Force or like Blood Moon or Saluna or something like that. So yeah, I do need to ask Ben about why he brought the Gyarados in there over the Hatterene, but yeah, so there's one turn Trick Room left, which means both of my Mons are going to go down here to the Expanding Force. Or, you know, it doesn't matter, like Spiky Shield or not. Like, I'm pretty sure even if my Ogre Pawn goes down here, Flutter Mane outspeeds it and KOs Hatterene, so yeah, that's about it for this set. I think the set probably could have gone a lot differently if it was Hatterene coming in instead of Gyarados. Like, I know I described my plan where like I would force it to go Expanding Force or Gleam, but it's still not a good plan, honestly, because I have to sack something to get even one move off, and even then it's not super guaranteed, so yeah, Hatterene goes down, and that is the end of the set. So now, the other request Aster had was to review the other game that she had. So I'll start from the beginning of Game 3. So this is Anthony versus Aster. I'm trying to think here. I do like the Whimsicott here. I think Aster's team doesn't really have a way of getting speed control. It usually is just relying on natural speed, or if it's going up against Trick Room, it doesn't really need that. It does kind of have a nice way to... I guess the way you deal with Tailwind on that team is to use Incineroar plus Zorua to get as many debuffs down as you can, just sort of survive the Tailwind, basically. Because you can get into a spot where if they lead a Tailwind Mon, that means obviously they're not leading double damage dealers. So if you just let the Tailwind go up and use that time to get your Snarls down or your Intimidates or Parting Shots, that's probably a good way to deal with it. Because Tailwind only lasts for 4 turns, and that's like a general way to deal with Tailwind is just... if you can't match it, at least make it into a situation where you can just kind of tank the hits through it. Stall it out with Protect, stuff like that. I remember what happens this turn. So I think realistically, Anthony is expecting Chenpao to Sucker Punch here. But I know Aster doesn't really like going for Sucker Punch because of the nature of the move is very coin flippy, which I kind of get. But I actually don't disagree with her move here, which ends up being Ice Spinner into the Iron Boulder. Because it does cover for Terra, and it still gets jet damage off if it doesn't Terra, sorry. So Mighty Cleave does KO Sylveon here because Sylveon very specially bulky, not very physically bulky. So yeah, the Ice Spinner comes in and KOs the Iron Boulder, which is really nice. Tailwind is up right now though, so yeah, maybe I was gonna say maybe an Incineroar switch would have been nice, but eating a Mighty Cleave there is not ideal, so maybe not. Maybe you just let the Sylveon go down or use like Detect plus Ice Spinner, something like that. What a cute goldfish. Yeah, Chiyu comes out here, Fluttermane comes out. And this is, so Fluttermane, I think, I'm not going to front and say it's like extremely hard to use Fluttermane, but I do think, as speaking as somebody who has used Fluttermane so many times at this point, like, there is some degree of familiarity that you need to have with the Pokemon for it to really do well, because otherwise you get into scenarios where Fluttermane just kind of explodes and dies before it gets to do anything. And part of the learning curve is knowing when you need the speed control for it, and knowing when you can just conserve it for the end game sort of thing, or when you can just lead it and put so much pressure down that that's its job pretty much, not to sweep the late game. You can still use it as a mid-game tool as well. Like after one of your mons comes down, you bring in Fluttermane, and suddenly they're not in a position for it, and if you're not positioned for it, it can really, really destroy you, so... the problem here is that with the Tailwind up, like, Aster's really struggling to get moves off before this Chiyu or whatever is next to the Whimsicott is able to knock out things, so... let's see here. This is something I'm not sure about. I don't know if this crit actually mattered, because it was a Snarl overheat raw onto a Fluttermane. If it does KO there, it wouldn't shock me, but if Fluttermane survives there and gets a Terra Stellar Gleam off, well, I don't know if it matters actually, because I don't think even Terra Stellar Dazzling Gleam kills Chiyu from that range, even with Beads of Ruin on the field. Because you saw the match before where my Dazzling Gleam did about 50% to the Chiyu, so I don't think it actually mattered at the end of the day. But yeah, that is something that it's kind of unfortunate for Aster, but her team doesn't really have a good Tailwind answer. Yeah, so like I said, you either have to use Incineroar and Zora to slow them down, or you need something like a Raging Bolt or like a Dragonite that can still function under Tailwind and still put out moves before they can. So yeah, it might be a team thing, it might not be a team thing. Who knows, you'd have to do more testing. So this is the only team I didn't get any prep versus. Like, I didn't get to look at the team sheet and figure out stuff, which is probably good, because realistically in a tournament, you're not going to be able to just sit down, look at your opponent's team for like 30 minutes and figure out stuff. So this is probably better practice than like seeing the team sheet beforehand. Sorry. But yeah, This is another scenario where I have a couple options here, which is I can either lead Tornadus, which is, as you can see, is my first thought because Tailwind kind of runs over the team, or I could lead double offense and just try to blow things up. And the only problem with doing that is Chen Pao and her Fluttermane are probably faster. So, excuse me. I think Ogerpon is always a bring here because I need something against Urshifu Rapid Strike. My team is kind of, well, it's not that bad into it because it's not Scarf Urshifu Rapid Strike. But normally when I see Urshifu in the team preview, because there's no way to tell if it's Rapid Strike or Single Strike, which is very cool, by the way. I love that. I pretty much have to bring Ogerpon usually. I think this is also a game where we really get to see, like, the Ogerpon is such a good Pokemon. Like, it's so incredibly good. Like, it sometimes when you use it, it feels a little underwhelming, but then you realize that how many different roles it fits. Like, it's such a good counter to water Pokemon. Follow Me is just such a good move. It can use Swords Dance and sweep things with Hearth Flame. Water Grass is such a nice typing for neutral defensive stuff. And even if you run bulky Ogerpon, which can be pretty bulky, honestly, like I think max HP Ogerpon survives a lot of like Sludge Bombs outside of maybe like Landorus. Such a good Pokemon. So this scenario, my thought process is she does this a lot. Astrid does this a lot, where the Sylveon is usually the Zora or the Chen-Pao, and I kind of get why they do that, but I basically need to figure out what I'm up against. And I don't want to eat a fake out onto Ogerpon. So I think my play here is, you spike the shield and then you hit the Bleak Wind. And even if Bleak Wind misses onto the Sylveon slot, which at this point I'm not sure if it's Sylveon or Zora, but if it gets hit, then the illusion wears off. So if Bleak Wind hits, then I know what it is. If Bleak Wind misses, then I'll get to see what the Sylveon move is, and I'll know immediately what it is. So. And just by that, taking so much damage, you already know it's Zora. So, fake out into Tornadus, of course. Unfortunately, that's just like learning what Covert Cloak does. So, and here is like, it's just a really good scenario for me at this point because, I've been intimidated, but what I can do here is I can use Rain Dance defensively to sort of neuter the damage from Incineroar. So it'll either have the Flare Blitz damage, or Knockoff doesn't really do anything against Ogerpon because you can't knock off its mask. So I'm pretty confident, even though I'm -1 right now, that a Rain boosted Ivy Cudgel will KO the Zoroa. And it doesn't have Protect, so even the only thing that switches in here that I'd be scared of is Urshifu Rapid Strike, which I think actually does end up coming up next turn. And this is a scenario you'll see comes into play a lot for me, is just leading the Tornadus, and then like if I know that I don't need Tailwind, then I don't have a reason to click it. So my Tornadus actually gets so much mileage off of Bleak Wind. It's just insane, honestly. And you know, that is a knowledge thing, just like knowing if you need the Tailwind or not, but yeah, it's really helpful because this ends up being a lot of Bleak Wind damage in this game, if I remember correctly. So Urshifu Rapid Strike comes in, And Incineroar comes back out, which I think is a really nice play from them to cycle the attack drops. You get the parting shot out, and then you bring in the Urshifu, and then because Zora died, you can bring Incineroar in again. The problem is, well, I think we'll see what happens this game. My Ogerpon is at -3 at this point, so I'm either thinking I need to switch it out, which I don't want to do because as you can see, my back two is Flutter Mane Arcanine again, which doesn't have any Protect. And I don't want to switch it into a Surging Strike, so this is kind of what I was talking about with the flexibility, which is that Ogerpon has done his job in surviving, picking up the KO with the rain-boosted Ivy Cudgel. And now that I'm at -3 attack, I can still use it as a follow me director to get away from the Surging Strikes here. So, the Bleak Wind will do a huge amount of damage to Urshifu, if not straight up KO it. And this is 100% accuracy Bleak Wind because we're in the rain. So to avoid this, they would need to do Terra Water onto the Urshifu. But it's just really hard because using Urshifu Rapid Strikes in front of Ogerpon Wellspring just completely negates its most powerful tool. I think they actually do end up doing the correct play, which is the close combat. Let's see. So a good cheap chip down there with the Bleak Wind. Yeah, they end up going for the correct play, which is the close combat to cover for the follow me. But the problem is with the special defense drop there, it means that Bleak Wind is a guaranteed KO next turn. So, like, Ogerpon did so much work there, being able to, even though, it's not putting any offensive pressure out, just being able to have follow me right there completely negates any possibility of Surging Strikes coming out, which is in the rain is obviously going to KO Tornadus. It's obviously going to KO pretty much anything that doesn't resist it. So now at this point, I still know that I have speed advantage because both my Pokemon are quite fast, and I know Incineroar is slow, and I know Urshifu is not faster than my stuff. So I don't need Tailwind still. I can just keep clicking Bleak Wind Storm and then Dazzling Gleam to cover for any switch or detect or anything like that happens. So and I think I could have Terra Fairy'd here. It wouldn't have been a bad idea at all. It would have picked up the KO on Incineroar, I'm pretty sure. Or if I had clicked Moonblast, but realistically, this Urshifu is not, the Incineroar is not really going to get that much important stuff off. That knockoff actually did a lot. Yeah, I guess you could probably knock off into the Flutter Mane. That's probably your best option because you get rid of the choice specs, which lowers the damage output. But I mean, realistically, I think in this endgame, it's just kind of too much to handle. Because even if you do get rid of choice specs, let's say you somehow knock out both of these Pokemon, I think Arcanine still wins in the back against those two. I guess they could miss Rock Slide, so hard to say, but Flutter Mane doing half of Sylveon's HP there is crazy, by the way. But yeah, at this point, Sylveon cannot win against the Arcanine Flutter. So yeah, we'll just skip to game 2. This game I wanted to change it up a little bit. I realized that Arcanine actually hits a lot of her team for really solid damage. The danger is an Incineroar lead, but I could still use Head Smash and get rid of it.
There's a lot of like Bleak Wind and Head Smash are both insanely good moves for the Pokemon that they're on right here for my team, but they are pretty inaccurate. So you can't always bank on them hitting, but sometimes you kind of need it. Like Head Smash is just such a strong nuke that like sometimes to pick up the KOs you really do need to click it. So yeah, I think this is definitely something to consider for Aster, which is that she's had a lot of troubles against Tailwind teams between mine and Anthony's, and so might be good to look into some things to beat that. And so this is kind of the lead I didn't want to see with Incineroar against my Arcanine, because I don't really want the attack drop. But it's not the worst still, so. So I actually do have a switch into Ogerpon here. I also could have led Flutter. Like, Flutter lead would be pretty strong against her team, actually. Probably Fluttering Glamour is actually a pretty viable lead. Because I'm pretty sure Meteor Beam plus Dazzling Gleam is enough to knock out most of the teams, so. I end up just eating the Fake Out and getting a Bleak Wind off for some chip. I think Sylveon actually flinches here, which I think realistically is not that big of a deal. Because you get Hyper Voice off, but Arcanine resists it, and Tornadus will just tank it, honestly. So, this was a game where I felt like I could switch and get into a better position with my Arcanine not attack drop. But I didn't want to eat that much unnecessary damage on Ogerpon, which is probably going to be my Terra target, or with Flutter Mane. So I kind of just felt like, yeah, why not just keep clicking moves until we pick up the KOs here. I think another play I could have done there would have been Rain Dance plus Rock Slide. Yeah, Sylveon finally does get the Throat Spray off. It's possible that if Sylveon didn't flinch there, my Tornadus would have gone down this turn, but it's honestly fine if it does, because I know my back is strong enough to win still, so. Like, even if I end up getting Tailwind here because I see Flutter Mane is on the field. Let's say my Tornadus goes down and I didn't get Tailwind up. I still would have been pretty confident in doing Rock Slide plus Terra Water on my Ogerpon, which would have ensured that, Flutter Mane's not going to one-shot my Ogerpon anyway, but let's say it goes like Terra Fairy Moonblast into my Ogerpon, it still probably would have lived, and then Ivy Cudgel picks up the KO, so. This play I'm a little sus on that, tearing your one-shot Sylveon is a little bit sus, but it happens, and it ends up being Zora. I actually forgot about that. But yeah, I you know what? It's so hard for me to really say like. I hope people continue to use Flutter Mane, because I know a lot of people really dislike it. I know even within this group, a lot of people aren't liking Flutter Mane. And a lot of people obviously don't like it because it's like really highly used. But I think it's honestly a really interesting, cool Pokemon. Like, I know this is a hot take and all, but There's so many different sets it can have. There's so many different roles you can use it for. Like the items change its role, the EV spreads change its role. It's really a unique Pokemon, I think. Like I can't remember the last time we've had a Pokemon that fulfills the same flexibility of rules that Fluttermane does. And obviously everyone's like, oh yeah, Choice Specs, Terra Fairy, Dazzling Gleam, but like having the flexibility of having that, or like a Focus Sash with max speed, max special attack, or like Speed Booster with Icy Wind, and I've even seen a lot of Flutters running Taunt recently. You can use it for Perish Song. It's a pretty flexible Pokemon, and I think the more you use it, the more you get a handle on like not only how to beat it, but like the what all you can use it for. I've obviously settled on the Choice Spec set because most of the time for my teams, the Choice Spec set has been really crucial in getting the damage down. And the way I position it, I don't really feel like I need Protect on it as much. So, yeah. I do hope to see people continue to use it and not just drop it if it underperformed a little bit. But, I can't blame them if it does happen. So, yeah, that's all the matches. I guess since Aster specifically requested me to do some bot review for her games, I hope that helped. I do recommend that we work on something to sort of mitigate your Tailwind matchup. And part of that is kind of team building concepts, because I do think that if you build a team, you do need to have some way to beat Tailwind. So, yeah, maybe we can sit down and work on that sometime. But for now, that's it. Yeah, we'll see what happens next week. I have some ideas for VGC content with this group, so we'll see if next week we just have the same old thing or if we do something different. All right, see ya.